My daughter has a doll that was battery operated. It would clap and sing when it heard a loud clap. Also had a motion sensor. The batteries died, so we put it on the new shelf in the dining room. Days passed, and we never put in new batteries. The shelf is too high for the children to reach, and even if they could, they did not know how to change the batteries. Anyways, middle of the day, no one is near the doll. It starts singing and clapping. Only for a few seconds. Weird, but it stopped. Then randomly at nighttime, you'd just doze off, and this bitch would sing loudly and scare you awake. Lol. But not funny. So I investigated the doll and get nothing. I clap loudly at it, and it doesn't activate. I wave my hands for the motion sensor, and nothing. I put it back on the shelf and walk back to my room. The damn thing goes off again. What the hell? I take the doll and throw it in the outside trash bin, and go back to sleep. Next day, the doll is on the couch in the living room. Next day, the doll is on the couch in the living room. The kids are 3 years old and 4 years old. I know they couldn't have gotten the doll out of the big trash bin. There's no one else who could have gotten it. As I approach the doll and it starts singing and clapping again, I freak out and ask the kids anyways. They say no. So I turn on the fireplace and throw the doll in. Burn, bitch. Then my daughter brings me a pink teddy bear. Tells me he's not her friend anymore and throws him into the fireplace too. The black smoke that rolled up the wall and into my house was crazy. Had to open the windows. Evil doll gone, unfriendly pink teddy bear gone too. My daughter still talks about the doll to ask me why I burned it. I told her it was haunted. Thanks, bye. My best friend, who I consider my brother, lived in a haunted mansion and we have experienced many paranormal events. We have a very unique ghost photo from the things in the mansion. My best friend slash current roommate has lived in a haunted mansion most of his life. This mansion resides in Massachusetts and was built in the early 1900s, so it's very old. We both have experienced multiple paranormal encounters there. One of the most paranormal active areas of the mansion is the attic. So my friend slash roommate, who I will call John, went into the attic one night. Inside the attic, there is a few crawl spaces. John went into the crawl space with a disposable camera. He turned the flash off on the disposable camera. Inside this crawl space, there is no light source. It is completely and utterly pitch black. There is zero light. So John started snapping pictures inside the pitch black crawl space, then got the pictures developed. After the pictures were developed, what came back among the pictures of darkness was a ghost photo unlike any I have ever seen. John's mother, who also experienced many paranormal encounters, and John both went to two different photo experts to see if there were any discrepancies with the ghost photo. Both photo experts said the photos were 100% authentic. This picture was taken 20 plus years ago. When I asked John's mother if she still had that ghost photo tucked away, she sent it to me via text message. So this is a digital photo of a physical developed photo. It was originally taken with one of those disposable camera that you have to crank the clicking wheel on top of the camera. If you look closely at the photo, you will see light reflecting off his glasses. This picture was taken in 100% complete darkness and no camera flash. So that light reflecting off his glasses must mean that whatever spiritual world the ghosts reside in must have light in that world. There is no light source in our dimension, so the light source had to have come from his dimension. The paranormal activity that happened after the ghost photo, the paranormal activity that happened after the ghost photo. After the photo was authenticated, John's mother put it away and forgot about it. One day, when I was with John, we were talking about the paranormal, and that's when he showed me his ghost photo. The next day, we were sitting in his car in a parking lot at night when we noticed his interior lights went on. For that to happen, you need to physically flip a switch in the center of his car ceiling. We didn't think of it much and shut it off. Then periodically, the light kept flipping on by itself. We watched the light switch physically move by itself. Then eventually, it stopped and didn't do it again. John didn't show the photo for weeks and we didn't encounter any other paranormal events. Then one day, John decided to have a few friends over, including me, to go to the swimming in the pool. Every person in the town that knew John knew his mansion was haunted, heard the ghost stories, and heard of the ghost photo. So naturally, someone brought it up during a conversation when everyone was done swimming. Then everyone wanted to see it. So John took out the ghost photo and showed it to his friends. During the showing of the photo, they asked where the photo was taken, and John told them, too, the attic. At this point in my friendship with John, I've seen the attic with the bright idea to do an EVP in the attic. Everyone who was brave enough stayed, which was basically John, Tim, and I. Everyone else left. So I grabbed my laptop for the EVP session in the attic. The three of us went into the attic to ask the ghost that was in the photo some questions. We arrived in the attic, and I set my laptop on the pool table that was sitting in the center of the attic. There was a few wooden chairs and other random old wooden objects such as the old snowshoes, pool cues, and such. We tried capturing disembodied voices on the laptop, but it was a bust, and we heard nothing. So Tim went home disappointed, and John and I decided to hang out at my house. When we left John's haunted mansion for my non-mansion home, it was getting dark. I lived only about a mile away from John's haunted mansion. When we arrived at my house, we were there for about 10 minutes when we got a call from John's mother. I handed John the phone, told him it was his mom, and told him she sounded very angry. I'll never forget what John's mother said. I could hear John's mother's voice screaming through the phone. "You guys need to calm down up there. It sounds like you guys are going nuts." Then John proceeded to tell his mom the frightening news. "Mom, we're at Fred's house and we left 20 minutes ago. You're the only one there." John's mother was very aware that her home was very active with the paranormal, so she knew what that meant. All she responded with was, "Oh, okay." Then John proceeded to voice his concern for his mother to make sure she was truly the only living person there, and someone didn't break in looking for valuables. So John told his mother, "We are on our way and we will check the house to make sure." So off we went back to John's. When we arrived at John's, we went up to the attic, and it looked like a tornado went through the attic. The wooden snowshoes were in pieces, and most of the chairs were broken in multiple pieces. The pool cues were thrown all over the place instead of being where we left them, which was in the designated pool cue racks. We checked the rest of the house, and of course no one else was there but us. At that time, I wanted to head home, so I told John I want to call it a day, and asked him if he could drive me home. He said yes, but first he wants to eat some cereal. I said, "Cool, I'll be outside smoking a cigarette." He said okay, and stayed in the kitchen as I walked to his car to sit down and have a cigarette. John's mother was in her room. John was eating cereal in the kitchen, and I was in John's car smoking a cigarette. As I sat in the car wishing I had John's keys to listen to some music, I started thinking about how crazy the old mansion is, and all the things that could have happened here in the past. Then I started hearing a familiar song, very faintly. And it goes like this. "Where do bad folks go when they die? They don't go to heaven where the angels fly. They go to lake of fire and fry." I couldn't understand where it was coming from. It couldn't have been the radio. I didn't have the keys. So I couldn't even listen to the radio if I wanted to. So I'm walking around the car, opening every single door trying to pinpoint where it's coming from. And I can't. It wasn't even coming from outside the speakers. It's like the song was coming out of the thin air. So at this point, John comes running out of the mansion and runs over to me excited about something saying to me, "The weirdest thing just happened, dude." I replied by saying, "Something weird is happening right now. Come sit in your car. Don't put the keys in the ignition and don't turn on the car. Just sit there and listen and tell me what you hear." John proceeded to sit down, close the door, and I did the same. He kept his keys out of the ignition and lit a cigarette and started to listen to and heard the song as well. He started doing the same thing I did and checked the speakers and tried to pinpoint a source. He couldn't. then whatever he was going to tell me seemed far less important to him, as he fixated all his energy on trying to debunk this mystery music. Then eventually it faded slowly away and stopped. We both found it very strange. We just decided to add it to the list of strange things that just happens at the mansion. John then started to tell me what just happened to him as he was eating cereal. I was sitting down eating cereal, and you know how my mom has the circular tin stove covers on top of the stove? Yeah, I replied. Well, my back was facing them as I was eating, and the stove cover flew up in the air and just slapped on the ground right in front of me. It slapped perfectly level and made a loud snapping sound. There is no way those stove covers can do that by themselves. No way, John said. As I was about to reply, I got interrupted by John's interior lights shutting off by themselves. Then the lights turned back on a second later, then off again. Then the switch started violently flipping on and off until John slapped the palm of his hand over the switch. Slowly pulled his palm away from the switch as the switch was in the on position, then looked at me with a very serious face and said, "I'm never showing that picture to anyone ever again." That was 10 years ago. Over 10 years, this ghost photo has been hidden because John believes that the paranormal activity will start again if he shows the photo. So my roommate John is very skeptical about showing the internet. But he no longer lives in that mansion or owns that haunted car anymore, so we feel a little better about it because of that. Believe me or not, but this story was just the tip of the iceberg. There is so many more paranormal events that we have experienced. The mansion it all took place at. During either my junior or senior year of high school, my dad moved into a new house after a divorce from my ex-stepmom. I had two younger siblings. Between the two of them, a younger brother and a younger sister. Since I lived with my mom a majority of my time during high school and stayed on campus during my first college semester, I shared a room in this house with my Anna, my younger sister, who is about 9 years younger than me. Alex, my younger brother by 6 years, had his own room down along the hall. This incident takes place in the upstairs hallway. For our context, the hallway comes off from the kitchen. Going down it, you'll pass the kids' bathroom on the left, and with Alex's bedroom door across from it on the right. Continuing down, the hallway ends in a small square, with the entrances to Anna and my bedroom, and Dad's bedroom sitting catty-corner to each other. I hope that's not too confusing. One night, the summer before I started college, I was coming home late from a date with my at the time boyfriend. It was about 2 a.m., so everyone in the house was asleep. Coming in the house, I knew my dad was dead asleep because I could hear his snoring. I went upstairs and walked to my room. Alex and Dad's doors were shut, meaning they were both asleep. Anna was asleep in our bedroom, and I threw my phone onto my bed and went to the bathroom to get ready for the bed. I shut the bathroom door and started getting dressed for bed and brushing my teeth. As I was finishing up and brushing my hair, I heard a noise from outside the bathroom door in the hallway. This didn't really surprise me, since Alex usually got up in the middle of the night to use the restroom. I went to open the door to tell him that I would be only just a second, but before I turned the handle, I stopped. The first noise I heard had been the creaking of the wood flooring in the hallway. But now, I heard a different noise. It was breathing. Now that doesn't seem scary in itself, but it wasn't normal breathing. It was heavy. Not labored or anything, just heavy. I don't know how to explain it, but there's a difference between the sound of kids breathing and adults breathing when you hear it. But the breathing sounded like an adult. I could still hear my dad snoring, so I knew it wasn't him. And it couldn't be Alex. That's why I stopped in the first place. That, and as the footsteps moved to the kitchen, they sounded heavy, like a grown man walking around. This was when I started panicking. My first thought was an intruder. There was a sliding back door in the kitchen that led to the backyard. and our fence was by no means unclimbable. I was worried that one of the kids must have left it unlocked when they went to the park behind the house, and no one noticed. I knew for sure I locked the front door when I had come in, but since I hadn't used the back door, I really hadn't checked it. Since it all made sense in my mind, I started panicking even more. I locked the door and held my breath, and I walked, and I could hear the breathing start to come down the hallway. The creaking of the floorboards signaled how close it was to the bathroom door. I held my breath, frozen in absolute fear. The breathing was heavy and crystal clear, like a man was standing directly on the other side of the door. I was shaking with fear. My dad always locked his door at night, so he couldn't help my siblings. I didn't have my phone on me. It was in my room on my bed. I did not have any sort of weapon in the bathroom. I hadn't heard any more movement from outside the door, and the breathing was still there. I slowly and quietly knelt down so I could look under the door. I was looking for feet. I was so scared I could hear my heart beating in my ears. There was nothing, no feet, and suddenly no breathing. The creaking was gone too. I got up, still trying to be quiet, and grabbed my hairbrush. I figured that was the best thing I'd have for a weapon, and I was just going to make a mad dash to my phone on my bed. I held the hairbrush and quietly unlocked the door, then held my breath and listened. Nothing. I whipped the door open and looked down the hallway. Nothing. I ran to my room and grabbed my phone and called my boyfriend. I had been on a date hours prior. I even asked him if he had come inside after he dropped me off. I was so sure there had been someone in the house. With him on the phone, I went through and checked the whole house. There was nothing. I checked the back door in the kitchen, and it had been locked. Alex and Anna were sleeping peacefully, and I could tell by Dad snoring he hadn't woken up either. I went to bed that night with my door locked. The next morning, I told my dad everything that had happened. He could tell that I had genuinely been scared, so he checked everywhere too. Apparently, we had an alarm system too, and it had not gone off that night. It wasn't an intruder, or at least not a person. But it was so real and so terrifying that I didn't go to visit my dad for a while after that. There is a story that I've been meaning to get out. When I was younger, maybe 7 or 8, I lived with my grandma in a gated neighborhood. Everybody there was super nice. And me, my sister, and my best friend at the time were the only kids living in the area. So we were all pretty good friends. We pretty much did everything together and spent all our free time hanging out. One summer, we decided to have a sleepover, something we had never done before. And my grandparents agreed, as did his. My sister decided not to come because she had a massive crush on my friend at the time. His name is Alex, by the way. Anyway, we kicked off the sleepover at about 4 p.m. and we played video games for a while. We eventually had dinner and watched YouTube until it was time for bed. At this time, I think it's important to mention that I have trouble sleeping, and always have. This is a result of my insomnia and sleep paralysis. As this was the case, I was awake periodically throughout the night, tossing and turning and getting up for water or bathing. Alex, on the other hand, was the exact opposite. He could sleep like a rock, regardless of the situations. At one point, I wake up suddenly and feel very cold, despite my blankets. I look around and see that Alex is sitting up, staring at the wall. I ask him, "What's up?" And he just shushes me and tells me that I'm going to wake them. I assume that he meant his parents, and he must be doing something he wasn't supposed to do, which is why he didn't want to wake them up. I shrug off his statement and manage to fall. This happens 2 or 3 more times in the night, where I wake up to him just sitting and telling me to be quiet, so I don't wake them. I had absolutely no sense of time back then, so I assumed this had happened in a span of minutes, and I just never fully fell asleep. Until I woke up and a shiver went down my spine. I was sweating a lot, and I was shivering. Don't know about y'all, but I shiver when I'm scared. Something in my mind told me to keep my eyes closed and to just go back to sleep. But I was curious to see if Alex was still awake, so I opened my eyes. Alex was standing directly above me, staring down at me. Something was off about his eyes. That's how I knew something was wrong. They were his eyes, but weren't his eyes? I again asked him what he was doing, to which he replied, awake. Me, assuming he meant his parents, said, are they mad? Then he says, yes, very, very mad. After he finished his sentence, I felt water hitting my face. I wiped it off and stood up to look at him properly. I see that he's crying. I have never known what to do when someone is crying, so I just kind of looked at him. They took me away, was all he said. After that, I went to the bathroom, and when he came back, he was in bed. So I went to the bed too, and I managed to sleep until the next morning. After we ate breakfast, we went to the public pool where I confronted him about what happened the night before. He said he had no memory of ever doing or saying anything that he did, and he thinks I'm joking when I tell this story. I'm not. This experience wasn't the worst, but it's still creepy enough to be recounted. I've had a lot of haunted experiences in my life, throughout the different stages, in different houses, etc. It seems that my family on my father's side experienced similar things, and through different generations too. This particular experience was one of my own, although my younger brother Alex was also around when it happened. At my father's house, the kids' bathroom is directly across the hallway from Alex's room. Alex is your typical obnoxious 14-year-old boy who often plays pranks on me and our sister Anna. One weekend, when I was 19 and living with my dad, I have been using the bathroom. Anna, my 11-year-old sister, was in her room, and Alex was in his across the hall playing video games. The doors were to the bathroom and to Alex's room were both shut. As I was scrolling TikTok, finishing up, I heard a soft knock on the door. It was just 2 knocks, and I immediately turned and called out, "Hey, I'm just finishing up. What's up?" Thinking it was just one of my siblings needing to use the bathroom after me. I got no response, which wasn't weird or anything, but a little annoying. I continued to watch videos on my phone, continuing to finish up. As I'm about to stand up, I hear knocking again. Once again, it was 2 knocks. Although I noticed that they seemed to be coming from the center of the door, but lower down, as if it was a toddler knocking. This small tidbit started to creep me out, and I called out once again. This time, less patient. "Alex, knock it off. I'm seriously almost done. You can wait 2 minutes. And if you can't, there are 2 other bathrooms in this house." I grumbled at the door. No response. Seconds later, as I'm washing my hands, I get a message on my phone. It was a Snapchat chat from Alex, asking me what I was yelling about. Annoyed, I messaged him back, expressing that I was annoyed from him continuously knocking. I was met with a, "Dude, what the hell? I haven't done anything." Still annoyed, I messaged him back, asking if it was Anna. He said he didn't know, but I was done in the bathroom anyway. Exiting, I threw a glare at Alex's door, then headed down the hall to me and Anna's room. She was sitting there, all tucked into bed, clearly not having moved recently. Despite that, I asked if she had been the one at the bathroom door. She rolled her eyes and told me no. I turned on my heel, determined to get to the bottom of this. I marched back down the hall and into Alex's room. He was sitting at his computer, in the middle of a game match, with headphones on. This was when I had started to get more creeped out than annoyed. Anna clearly hadn't moved from her bed, and Alex had clearly been sitting, playing a 10-minute game round for the entire time I had been in the bathroom. There was no way either of them could have gotten up. Knocked twice on the door, and waited another 2 minutes, and then did it again. It didn't make sense, and furthermore, both of my siblings are tall. I'm stuck at 5'5", but Alex towered above me at 14, being about 6. Anna, as an 11-year-old, was practically my height. This just further reinstated that they wouldn't have been the ones to knock on the door. Remembering the noise originated from the low center of the door, a terribly nitpick detail, but important nonetheless. After I barged into Alex's room, he moved one of his headphones off his ear to hear what I had to say. I asked him if he had heard anything, and he told me he had heard a couple knocks. Then he heard me yelling at someone. I asked if he thought it was Dad, but after both of us went downstairs, where we found Dad playing video games, I asked if he had been upstairs at all within the past 10 minutes, and he said he hadn't. After telling him what happened and him making a joke, Alex and I returned upstairs, a little freaked out. Alex returned to his room, and I went down to the living room. We didn't talk about it again.